All right, let's talk about some more important topics. So here we have the limiting reagent, theoretical yield, and then percent yield. So let's go back to our analogy of making our grilled cheese sandwiches. So we got 2 slices of bread, 1 slice of cheese to make 1 sandwich. And so note that we have 2 components becoming 1. And so we can talk about the amounts of each that we have. So for example, let's say that we have 14 slices of bread and 14 slices of cheese. How many sandwiches can we make? Right, again, you might be able to answer this question off the top of your head, but you still want to be able to show your work because when it becomes more complex, you want to be able to rely on the method. So we'll take our 14 breads. We'll say for every 2 breads, we get 1 sandwich. And that would make 7 sandwiches. And then let's check out our cheese. We have 14 slices of cheese. For every 1 cheese, you get 1 sandwich. That's 14 sandwiches. All right, so if we have 14 slices of bread and 14 slices of cheese, one of our mathematical answers is telling us that we can make 7 slices of bread or 7 sandwiches, and the other one is telling us that we can make 14 sandwiches. So if you think about the real world applications, you're only going to be able to make 7 sandwiches, because after you make 7 sandwiches, you're going to run out of bread, and it doesn't matter how much cheese you have, you can't make a sandwich without bread. And so this bread here is what we call the limiting reagent. It's the reactant that makes the least amount of product, right? So that's our limiting reagent, the bread, because that will only make 7 sandwiches. And so that's the only amount of sandwiches that we're going to be able to make. And then the 7 sandwiches is our theoretical yield. So what that tells us, if we have 14 slices of bread and 14 slices of cheese, we should be able to make up to 7 sandwiches. Now, in a thought experiment, we can easily make 7 sandwiches, but maybe in real life, something's going to go wrong. Maybe you're going to drop a slice of bread, burn the grilled cheese, something like that. So you might get less than 7 sandwiches. Same in chemistry. When we do chemical reactions, we predict the maximum amount of product that we're going to be able to form. However, we're not always going to get that amount of product. Because some errors might happen here and there. So the theoretical yield is how much you would make if everything worked out, say 100%, right? So if everything goes perfect, that's how much you should make. That's how much you should be able to theoretically make, right? So that covers our theoretical yield and our limiting reagent. And so there's how we calculated our limiting reagent and our theoretical yield. And then some other part of the sentence might have something to do with what you did during the experiment, right? So first off, do things always go 100% well? And of course, the answer is no, especially in chemistry. There's always going to be some kind of error. You might drop something, or even just in the reaction itself. There's a lot of other chemistry that could occur that could lower your yield. So let's continue this question. And it says, you made 5 sandwiches. What is the percent yield? Right, so in this question, this is generally what you're given, or if you were in the lab, this is what you'd actually conduct. This is your actual yield. Right, you had enough ingredients to make 7 sandwiches, but things happened, and so you only made 5 sandwiches. And what we want here now is the percent yield. And the percent yield is very simply the actual yield over the theoretical yield times 100% just to make it a percentage. So in our case, we made our actual yield was the 5 sandwiches. Our theoretical yield was 7 sandwiches. We multiply that by 100%. In this case, we get about 71%. So that's our yield. We made about 71% of the sandwiches that we could have made. This percent yield should never go above 100%. If it goes above 100%, chances are you flipped these two numbers, or if you're doing this experiment in real life, you did something wrong with the experiment. Usually it happens when you're working with water and you don't dry your product completely. So again, there's 2 steps in these kinds of problems. The first step is to find which compound is the limiting reagent, which will then tell you what your theoretical yield is. And then after you have your theoretical yield, you take actual over theoretical times 100% to find your percent yield.